Sage Wonder here, and welcome to Coffee Talk. So, my spirit feels free as a bird today. I think I've gotten my sense of humor back. But I wanted to talk today about kind of a nexus of ideas, a combination of theories about ancient history. And one theory will rise to the top. You'll immediately notice I'm going to talk about Niburu to a certain degree. And there's a lot about Niburu. I've never ever talked about Niburu on my channel. I don't know why. Why haven't I? Why haven't I talked about Niburu? Planet X. So that's one of the theories, along with theories from the Christian Bible, that I feel comfortable talking about. Because remember, Coffee Talk is about theories that I find interesting but don't necessarily believe. So Orthodox Christian friends, suspend disbelief for just a moment. Try not to get offended that I'm attacking your faith in some way. And just hang with me for a minute while we look at some interesting stuff and just play a game of what if. After all, that's what Coffee Talk is all about. So when I was a little kid, I was very much interested in anything to do with prehistory. I was a little bit obsessed with dinosaurs, the thought of giant critters living on the world, on the earth like that, and a kid that grew up in the woods. I guess that's what interested me. Every time I rounded a corner by a giant Pacific Northwest fir tree, and I rounded the corner and I saw an opening, I wondered what it would be like to see a dinosaur grazing in the field. I intend to do a video soon about a man named Dr. Carl Baugh. Dr. Carl Baugh is the owner and curator of the Creation's Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. I've had the opportunity to meet Dr. Carl Baugh on numerous occasions, hear him speak, hear him debate scientists, and he has an alternate theory than dinosaurs are fake and you're all conning us, which is what Christians have been preaching for 100 years now, or better. Some of them, a lot of them. I mean, you know, how do Christians generally deal with dinosaur fossils? Is it made up? Those were demons. I don't know. I mean, let's get real. We got to find a way to make the fossil record coexist with the Bible to be a believer. Otherwise, one or the other starts to look like mythology. But I think Dr. Carl Baugh did a great job of that, totally accidentally. Dr. Carl Baugh was a famous paleontologist. Not famous. He was an established paleontologist studying dinosaurs. And there was a find of dinosaur footprints in a riverbed in near Glen Rose, Texas. And I've been there. I've seen where they took the footprints out. There's a place there called the Dinosaur Park where you can go from the paleontologist perspective and learn all about this. But Dr. Carl Baugh said he was one of the first people to go and examine these footprints. And what he found was human handprints and human footprints coexisting in the fossil record with dinosaurs. Dun, dun, dun. Proving, because of the way that we study this rock, that this print was made literally at the same time as the dinosaur print. And he can prove how, in some ways, the way he believes is that these human prints were interacting with the dinosaurs. In other words, they were running for their lives, being chased by a dinosaur. Woo! As a kid, I loved this stuff. Oh man. Anyway, so it's no secret that, or no stretch of the imagination, that while living in Texas, owning land and property right close to Glen Rose, that I wouldn't end up over there at Dr. Carl Baugh's interesting facility. This is probably going to be a long coffee talk. I hope you brought lots of coffee. Because, like I said, there's multiple theories coinciding together that are going to put together my own custom mix of theories that I think explain some things, but I don't really believe it, honestly. I don't know what to believe. I'm just a seeker. So, but I do believe Dr. Carl Baugh knows what he's talking about. You ought to check him out. You'll find a couple of his videos in my liked video section of this channel, so go by and check those out. And so what interested me most as a kid, understanding that there was a time before history. Prehistory is a mystery, the mystery of prehistory. Dinosaurs are just part of that mystery. Dragons are part of that mystery. Sea monsters, part of that mystery. The missing link in Sasquatch, part of that mystery. You see how all of this stuff is tied together to what really went on before men and women started writing down the occurrences of daily life in what we call the history, or if you're a feminist, the herstory. The herstory, that just doesn't sound right. The human herstory. That instead of human history, it's the human herstory. I hope you're laughing. You may be going, what is he talking about? So, what happened before history? Well, I think one of the first things you're going to run into when you start to study prehistory is this common mythology story of a global flood that happens prior to, us keeping records. That once upon a time, right prior to when we first started keeping records and recording history, there was a giant flood. This flood was told in the book of Genesis. I'm like, was that in Genesis or Exodus? I'm not much of an Old Testament scholar, I'll tell you that. I tend to stick in the red letters. But at any rate, yeah, there was this giant flood. And the animals were saved through an ark. We know the story, Noah's Ark. Some people believe they found Noah's Ark. There's a giant Christian museum thing that's dedicated to the ark. It's a recreation, they think, of the ark. But also you have the story of Gilgamesh. And there's a flood in that story too. And that comes from another source, the Sumerians. The Sumerians, I think are the most interesting of all of prehistory, because they're the very beginning of when we started to keep track of things. And we do have, now that we've been able to learn how to decipher their writings, the Sumerian texts give us this interesting story. It is at the root of what people call the ancient alien theory. So, what do we know? What do all of these things, these theories, have in common? Well, all of these theories say once upon a time there were giants. Even Dr. Carl Baugh, who found footprints that were like 22 inches long, human footprints, 22 inches long, that he has that in the fossil record as well. You got to check out Dr. Carl Baugh. I know that when I went to his museum, he'd grown a tomato plant that was 32 feet tall and had tomatoes on it the size of basketballs. Saw it with my own eyes. Basketball tomatoes. He says everything was bigger before the flood because the earth was more inhabitable. It was more friendly in a lot of ways to all life forms because there was a water canopy that covered the earth. And then what the flood was this water canopy collapsing. And so you have this deluge of rain because essentially you had what we have in Oregon, which is a constant kind of cloud cover and a mist and a dew in the morning. And so before there was the flood, before history, there was a pre-flood world known as the Diluvian world. Many people believe that the theory of Atlantis, another theory coinciding and colliding here in this overall theory, the theory that Atlantis was this advanced civilization that somehow had gained this from canoodling, conspiring with aliens from another planet, that there was a time. One of the things that all of these theories have in common, they talk about a time when the gods walked amongst us, when angels roamed the earth, when aliens, supernatural creatures, in almost all prehistory mythology, whether it's the Titans of ancient Greece, the gods of the Roman culture, whether it's the gods of South America, the flying serpent gods, there's all of these. There is something too. I mean, there's no doubt that there's a common thread of what looks like an ancient alien kind of, or demons and angels kind of world where gods walked amongst us. In the book of Genesis, it tells us that God walked with Adam in the cool of the evening in the garden. There was a time when God himself actually walked with Adam, in a physical way. So there was once upon a time, there were gods, angels, and demons manifested in a physical way. They had to be physical because in Genesis it tells us about the Nephilim that came down and married human women and gave birth to these titans, these god humans, these men of renown, these giants in the land. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, that was a spontaneous dun, dun, dun. Pretty trippy, right? That all of these ancient prehistory myths have a common thread. A flood that destroyed a pre-Diluvian world that was full of all kinds of monsters. Human beings with the heads of bulls. Dun dun dun. You're gonna get a bunch of these. Horses with horns. Dun dun dun. Elves, fairies, dwarves, mythical creatures, flying dragons, giants, men of renown, angels, demons, aliens amongst us. What an interesting world. You can see as a kid why I was so drawn into this, and I still am. What was it like before the flood? It never rained. The Bible tells us that. You know, it just misted. It just dude. People used to call me the dude when I had long hair. You can probably see it. Big Lebowski. If you haven't seen that movie, you're like, what is he talking about? Sage lost his mind when he left the church. No, I just discovered my joy again. So, back to what I was saying. Off topic. So there's this theory that once upon a time, we had all of this interaction. Then there was the flood. And then there was a time of nothing. Post-flood, we don't have stories like this anymore. Really. There's a few giants that survive into the post-flood world in the Bible and in some mythologies. There's still stories in the medieval days of dragons. Did some of these things survive the flood? Did it gradually go away, or was there a cataclysmic moment when the gods stopped walking amongst us? Interesting to me. This is so interesting to me. This is, like, to me, the most interesting video I've ever done. I'm going to watch it 10 times. I don't know about you. So, what was it like? And why did it change? Now, let's go back to the thing I started talking about at the beginning of this, the Nibiru, Planet X. There's this idea that there's a planet on an elliptical orbit around our sun instead of a round orbit like the rest of the planets. This one is kind of out of whack and in its own orbit, which is this extremely long loop that takes about, I guess, 10,000 years. I'm not a Nibiru expert, so you Nibiru experts feel free to... I never have a problem with being corrected. I'm a humble guy, so if I got it wrong, just tell me. You know, if it's something that's obvious I missed, like in the previous video I said Africa and I meant Australia. But at any rate, so yeah, there's this elliptical loop. It only comes close to the Earth every 10,000 years or so. And it's getting closer. It's back, and it's getting closer. It's been 10,000 years. It's been 10,000 years since Niburu left our orbit. How long does it stay within reach of us? Are these angels and demons? Are these aliens Niburu residents? Do they live on this planet that shoots through space through many different solar systems? Do we only get to have gods that walk amongst us during certain times and periods of time around every 10,000 years? Are we facing another kind of disaster like a global flood? Did they do that to us? Did Niburu people do that to us? Did the Niburu people make the Cyclopses? Did the Niburu people, make all of these hybrid animal-human things from mythology? Were the members of Niburu these really egomaniacal gods of the Greek times? Is that what we base these stories of demons on to some degree? Is on these really crazy stories of ancient gods who come down here with all their hubris and all of their pride and enslave humanity and treat us all like cattle? Are they back? Is that why our world seems really weird? Is there experiments? Are there already experiments happening on Earth? Are we seeing the hybrid Crimeas? You know, there's been a whole lot of crypto stuff going on, new creatures we never heard of, dogmen and things like that. Is this where this sudden, unprecedented, unhistorical, what's the word I'm looking for, technological explosion? Think about this. Think about the last 10,000 years of known history. We have come farther technologically in the last 100 years than we have in the last 10,000 years combined. That the difference between 1832 and the year 32 technologically, not much difference. Horse and buggy days, man. Make your blacksmith is the guy that makes your weapons. I mean, nothing's really changed in 10,000 years, much. But the last 100 years, where has this come from? Is all this technology Niburu technology? Did we start seeing this uptick in alien activity on our planet and UFOs, back in the 1930s, because that was when Niburu got close enough for these things to start visiting us? Are they getting close enough now that they can really teletransport their essence into the world, and that's why there's this uptick of demon activity and craziness and insanity and people losing their minds in the world we live in today? Is that why our world seems more unstable than it's ever been? Our world is coming apart at the seams, man. I mean, if you go back, if you know history, the last 100 years has been wackadoodle, craziness. The technology has changed everything. I mean, that's why none of you know how to feed yourselves. Just watch Fishing with Sage. You know that I know how to feed myself. I can skin a buck, I can run a trot line, because a country boy can't survive. A lot of you guys can't, because, you're slaves to the technology. It's not your fault. You're born into it. Born with a silver spoon in your mouth, historically speaking. This technology is insane. Where did it come from? Did we invent it? If so, why didn't we invent it sooner? How come we're suddenly able to do this? These are things that I think about. Are we entering that mystical time, like before the flood, when we will see gods walking amongst us? Will we see Apollo? Will we meet him or his great-great-great-great-grandson? Will we meet Zeus? How about Mercury? Will you see a Cyclops? How about a giant? Are these things coming? Is that what's coming next as Niburu gets closer? Is Planet X and the Sumerian tablets related? I don't know. You tell me. It's just a coffee talk. It's a rainy day in Oregon, so I thought I'd do a long coffee talk. Do check out Carl Baugh, who tells you there were giants before, and then he recreated the giant tomato plant. He recreated that by creating a hyperbolic chamber, I think it's called, or hyperbaric chamber. It's like an iron lung. And he tries to recreate what the atmosphere might have been like before the flood, and that's how he grew this giant tomato. Everything's bigger in Texas, but apparently everything's bigger in a hyperbaric chamber. Are they going to do some kind of geoengineering on the Earth to take us back to a time when we have are they going to restore the water canopy that was here before? A lot of you sunbathers wouldn't like that. A lot of you people that like to sing in the rain, you wouldn't like that if there was no rain and no sunshine. No weather on Earth. That would be really, really weird. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about all these things? All of these theories combining in this one theory. I don't know. It's just a coffee talk. Wait, I'm almost out. See you next time.